The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 331. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 331, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to health, adding charter schools to the prohibition of tobacco in schools, the third engrossment.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 331.
Third reading. Discussion. I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Edelson, to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. House File 331 aligns Minnesota's laws with federal Tobacco 21 laws. The federal law was introduced and championed by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and signed into law by the President last year. While Tobacco 21 is now the law of the land under federal policy, our state tobacco age remains 18. In Minnesota, we rely on a strong community approach to tobacco age enforcement. Our cities and counties are responsible for distributing tobacco retail licenses. As a part of that licensing responsibility, they work in collaboration with retailers, law enforcement, youth to enforce the state tobacco age. We need this bill so we don't have some communities enforcing a state age of 18 while some are enforcing an age of 21. This bill makes it clear that there is only one tobacco age, and that is 21. Adopting statewide Tobacco 21 is urgently needed to provide clarity, accountability, and make it easier for our state and local partners. This bill makes several relevant and important changes to state law. It updates state tobacco definitions to include the latest products on the market. It updates state compliance check requirements to include 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. This bill updates state penalties to follow current best practices and align with federal law. Like many of you, I have advocated for Tobacco 21 for years, long before we had a federal policy. 3 years ago, I worked with a group of neighbors, Democrats and Republicans, doctors and nurses, coaches, parents, youth, law enforcement, and the city's public health to make sure that Edina was the first community in Minnesota to raise the tobacco age to 21. We came together because research shows that raising the tobacco age to 21 will prevent youth addiction and save lives. Nearly 95% of addicted youth have started, or addicted youth smoke, or adult smokers started before 21. So raising the age will help interrupt the cycle of addiction, death, and disease associated with tobacco use. 3 years later, the landscape has changed dramatically. Our teens are facing a tobacco epidemic fueled by trendy, flavored, high-nicotine e-cigarettes. The rates of teen vaping are astronomical and have erased nearly 2 decades of progress to reduce tobacco use. Meanwhile, our communities across Minnesota and the country have stood up for kids and worked to get tobacco products out of our middle and high schools by raising the tobacco age. I want to thank my co-authors, Democrats and Republicans from urban, suburban, and greater Minnesota communities. Thank you for leading this effort. Tobacco 21 is the right move for our state, and it's overwhelmingly popular. A recent poll found 74% of Minnesotans are in favor of Tobacco 21. The COVID pandemic is one more reason why we need to support strong public health, especially when it comes to our lungs. While we have much to learn about this virus, early studies show it can be particularly dangerous to people whose lungs are weakened by asthma, chronic disease, and smoking. Members, Minnesota is ready for Tobacco 21. Our local communities have led the way. Our federal partners made Tobacco 21 a priority. Law enforcement, school administrators, teachers, and youth all support. And many tobacco retailers and industry representatives. Now it is our state's turn to act and adopt this life-saving policy. It has been my honor to carry this bill, and I urge a yes vote today. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd be happy to stand for questions.
The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Edelson, for being a champion for this really important policy. It's been amazing to see the evolution of tobacco policy in Minnesota and around the country. There was a time when something like this was considered to be controversial, and now it's very clear that this is the right move to make for public health, especially as we have seen the scourge of vaping kind of sweep across our state and sweep up our kids in a new way of being addicted to nicotine products. We know now that a quarter of all 11th graders are vaping. And when you look at the current public health crisis that we have and the need for us to make sure that we are as healthy as possible in protecting our lungs, We know the vaping and smoking put people at greater risk of illness and dying. So this is important policy for today. It's also important policy for the future. We were on such a wonderful downward trajectory in the state of Minnesota in youth tobacco use until these seductive e-cigarettes came onto the market. And they caught up our kids with their flavors and their advertising and their clever marketing, just like the tobacco companies of old had done. And this was the new investment in the future, in future customers for the tobacco companies. But by taking a stand and saying that Tobacco 21 is not only the law of the land, it is the law of Minnesota, and all our communities are going to adopt Tobacco 21, we are taking a stand to say we are not going to turn the youth of Minnesota over to big tobacco once again. So thank you, Representative Edelson. Thank you for everybody who worked on this bill on both sides of the aisle. The fact that this is bipartisan does such good things to my heart when we are working on the health, working for the health of our kids. That means a lot. And so with that, members, please vote yes, proudly.
The member from Itasca, Representative Lehman.
I would like to rise. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to rise today in support of this bill with a little personal story as to why I've been a supporter of the Tobacco 21 efforts from the beginning. Quitting tobacco is one of the hardest things a person will ever do. If you ask any former tobacco user, and most current ones, they'll say they wish they'd never started. As someone who's been there myself, I can tell you that I started young, and one factor that made it easier to start was that tobacco products were readily available. It was a local public health effort that actually served as a catalyst for me to quit almost 40 years ago. Polls show that the great majority of smokers do support Tobacco 21 because they know it will prevent others from being trapped by nicotine addiction. By applying the same common sense age restriction to tobacco that we apply to alcohol, we're going to make it a little harder for young people to get tobacco products and a little easier for them to go without it. Tobacco 21 is about prevention because it will result in fewer tobacco products in the hands of our middle school and high school students. This bill will clear up any confusion among retailers, local law enforcement, and people across our state, because we can say that the federal tobacco age is 21, and so is Minnesota's. This bill today is supported by both Minnesotans for a smoke-free generation and the tobacco industry. And we look across the landscape, how things have changed over time. Actually, 43% of Minnesotans right now are in Tobacco 21 communities. So I am here today to lend my support and urge members for you to support this bill today. Thank you.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Marion.
Madam Speaker, members, menthol cigarettes like Cools and Newport and little cigars like Swissers, Sweet are still a huge problem. These products are lower priced, come in appealing flavors, and are heavily marketed towards youth, African Americans, and the LGBTQ communities. In communities of color and other diverse communities, tobacco use is still a huge problem. E-cigarettes use is also becoming widespread among kids of color. In 2019, Minnesota student survey showed that e-cigarettes rates are through the roof, especially for some of our most vulnerable students. Current use of tobacco products among bisexual students is 41%. Use by American Indian students is 28%. Tobacco use by students facing severe economic hardship is 41%. And finally, among those students bullied daily, 43% are using tobacco products. Our kids should be growing up strong and free from addiction. but they have been relentlessly targeted by the same industry that hooked so many of our parents and grandparents on cigarettes, including myself. I can't sit still and let this happen to this generation. I smoked, and I started young. Like so many young people, I was lured into smoking because it looked cool, and it was a status thing. I quit, and I am so fortunate. It is our job to protect our kids and young people from an industry that profits from addiction and disease. Preventing youth tobacco use will help us stand up for kids of color and advance health equity. Tobacco 21 isn't the end of the road, but it is a meaningful step that we can take today. Please support all our kids and vote yes on Tobacco 21. Thank you.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I too have a personal story. Even before I was born, my mother smoked, my father smoked, and my older brother smoked, all in the home. My mother smoked when I was an infant. My brother moved out, but my dad continued to smoke probably 2 or 3 packs a day, one after another, until I was 13 years old. I'm literally short of breath right now because I have asthma so badly from years and years and years at a very young age from multiple people smoking around me. I am incredibly supportive of the concept of changing the tobacco age to 21. What I'm not supportive of is this particular version of the bill. Because who are we penalizing? We are penalizing 4 times higher the businesses that sell them. Sometimes they make mistakes. If they make a mistake, now they're going to pay 4 times more in penalties. I don't know that that's the approach that we should be taking right now, to penalize businesses for making a mistake. And flip side, we're actually removing the penalty. We're taking away the petty misdemeanor from the adult, still under 21, 18, 19, 20-year-old person who is in possession of tobacco products or purchased tobacco products. We're taking that away and saying, just do community service or do this program. Please don't do that. We don't want you to do that. I don't understand how this is supposed to reduce smoking among young people. If it did, I'd be all for it. I literally can't breathe right now because my asthma has been so bad in the springtime. And it's a direct result of many adults smoking around me when I was a child. I agree with Tobacco 21 in concept. I don't agree with how this particular bill has been crafted. Why are we punishing the businesses who have made a mistake and sold to someone under 21? And for those reasons, I will be voting no today. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Munson.
And thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in opposition to this bill today. We heard this bill in Health and Human Services, Finance, and I brought up several concerns about the bill that have not been addressed. This bill prohibits anyone from entering a tobacco store that is under the age of 21. Now, in many of the metropolitan areas, tobacco convenience stores have been forced to create a separate store attached to the convenience store to sell tobacco products, and it is a separate business. This means that many people that work in the tobacco stores or the convenience stores would lose their jobs if this bill becomes law. There are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds that work in retail stores, both in tobacco stores and convenience stores, and this bill goes into law, they'll lose their jobs. It also prevents parents from bringing children into a convenience store that sells tobacco or tobacco store. Now, I'm not trying to hand out Parent of the Year awards here, but forcing parents to leave their children in their cars outside of stores, even if they're infants, there is no exception in this bill for children. to just be in the store. There's not tobacco being consumed in the stores. This bill also doesn't address people under 21 smoking. It addresses people under 21 from purchasing tobacco. And as Representative O'Neill pointed out, it removes the petty misdemeanor from possession and basically just targets the purchase of. It also doesn't address people who currently smoke who are underage and are going to have difficulty going through withdrawal from tobacco. It doesn't have exceptions for people that you're 18 years old, you can serve our country, but you can't buy tobacco. I think this bill goes too far. It does not have the appropriate exceptions, and for that I'm voting no. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Sibley, Representative Gruenhagen.
Madam Chair. Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I tend to lean in support of the bill. One of the things in our country is the promotion of addiction to young people. And I've seen that happen so often in society, whether it's school board member or when I was in jail ministry, and the devastating consequences. Also, we know that if any lay person has studied brain development, we know that your brain doesn't fully develop till into your 20s, where you can properly weigh the consequences of your decision. Another thing is the school board. One of the things that's well known is that 18-year-olds will bring addictive products that they can buy legally 2 to 3 to 4 years below them. So when you have 18-year-olds as seniors in a school, you tend to create a pipeline to younger students who are more easily addicted, and even though they're illegal from buying such a product. So, I'm going to vote yes on this bill, but I do understand the concerns brought up by Representative O'Neill, Munson, and others, and I hope that it's fixed in a conference committee. And if it's not, I'm probably going to change my vote. But for today, I want to send that message, and we have every right as government to regulate addictive products. And thank you for bringing this forward, Representative Edelson, but I do strongly suggest that you fix some of the concerns that have been brought up. Thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
And thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm wondering if the author would yield just for a couple of quick questions.
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the author, can you clarify for members, does this bill have minimum mandatory penalties for both the individuals who are working in these smoke shops, as well as the sellers of tobacco, as well, the actual shop owners?
Representative Edelson.
Madam Speaker, Representative Garofalo, the fines, and I appreciate this being brought up, the fines on businesses are only imposed if they sell to a minor or if they sell to someone that is under 21. So with that, there would be a fine. But if they do not, there is not one. So with that, if I can clarify anything, please let me know.
Representative Garofalo.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. And for the author, yes, so my question was, are there minimum mandatory penalties if a convenience store, if an employee sells to a 20-year-old as opposed to a 21-year-old, does that employee have a minimum mandatory penalty? Likewise, does the store itself have a minimum mandatory penalty under your statute?
Representative Edelson.
Madam Speaker, Representative Garofalo, for a sale clerk, if the person is under 21, it would be a $50 administrative fee with no criminal fine. If the person is over 21, it would be a petty misdemeanor.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Edelson, how about for the individual stores that are selling it? What is their minimum mandatory penalty if they make one mistake, two mistakes, or perhaps three mistakes over the course of 3 years?
Representative Edelson.
Madam Speaker, Representative Garofalo, for the first violation, it is $300. For the second violation, it is $600. Let's see, and after that, it is $1,000. Again, those fines would not be imposed unless the clerk or the store sells to a minor. So these businesses would not receive these fines. The sales clerk would not receive that, and many of these sales clerks lose their job if that actually happens. So, yes.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And it's important for members listening to this debate to understand what the current law is. Again, if you're under 18 currently, that number is $75 versus $200 for the second violation. So this increases it to $300, $600, and the $600 in the second violation, $1,000 in the third violation. And in addition to that, it lengthens the sort of probationary period from 2 years to 3 years. So if you are a convenience store that makes one mistake a year, one mistake of selling to perhaps a very old-looking 20-year-old who's buying a pack of cigarettes, if one employee makes that mistake once a year, you're going to be subject to a $1,000 fine. And in addition to that, you're going to have a minimum mandatory suspension of selling of all tobacco products for a week. That's the consequences of making one mistake. Now, I thought that the progressive left in our state was opposed to minimum mandatory sentences. That's why I'm using that term, but that's what this bill does, is it imposes minimum mandatory sentences. So I think we all share the goal of reducing tobacco usage, but we also recognize that sometimes government gets carried away, and this is a bill that gets totally carried away. I would urge members to vote no on its final passage. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Freiberg.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad. I just want to take this as an opportunity to respond to a few of the points that have been raised recently by other members. So first of all, to the issue of monetary fines. These are not mandatory minimum sentences. That's kind of a term used related to incarceration, but these are fines. There are fines currently in existence. They've been in law for 23 years, and they have never been raised. So this does impose some fines to retailers who sell tobacco to kids and to young adults. But it just raises the fines to a reasonable level that probably comes close to accounting for inflation. As I said, they've not been raised in 23 years. Representative Munson mentioned, he stated that this bill would not allow parents to go into convenience stores with their kids. That's not correct. There is a limitation for tobacco product shops, and that's a term that's defined very specifically in law. It's currently in law. It's only shops that derive 90% or more of their gross revenue from the sale of tobacco and related products. And it only applies to the Clean Indoor Air Act. So all this bill does is raise the age in that existing provision from 18 to 21. A convenience store generally does not derive 90% of its gross revenue from the sale of tobacco products. So parents, even if this passes in its current form, parents will still be able to go into convenience stores with their kids. Finally, I want to address the issue of possession, use, and purchase. Representative O'Neill raised this. So increasing the tobacco sales age is not about punishing our kids. It's about protecting them from a lifetime of addiction. So penalties for underage purchase, use, or possession of tobacco products have not been proven to reduce youth tobacco use. And they're not included in the federal Tobacco 21 law either. So by not including those, we are just mirroring the federal law that President Trump signed into law. Most retailers are responsible, but purchase, use, and possession penalties divert focus from addressing the few retailers that are irresponsible and the tobacco industry, which has a long history of targeting youth. These penalties also might increase negative interactions between young people of color and law enforcement. There's a clear consensus from national health organizations like the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association, and the American Lung Association that Tobacco 21 policies should eliminate these penalties. These organizations, as well as Minnesotans for a Smoke-Free Generation, oppose Tobacco 21 policies that penalize youth for the possession, use, or purchase of tobacco products. This bill puts responsibility where it properly belongs, and that's on those few irresponsible retailers who do sell tobacco to kids and to young adults. Members, this bill should be an easy bill to get done this year. We need to pass it so it's crystal clear that our state tobacco age is 21. Medical professionals worry about tobacco use because brain development continues into the early 20s. Youth are more susceptible to addiction because their brains are still forming. Nicotine in any form harms the adolescent brain, interrupting learning and priming young brains for addiction to cigarettes and other substances. Tobacco addiction is real and it's devastating to so many Minnesota families, but there is help available. Every Minnesota resident, including kids and 18, 19, and 20-year-olds affected by Tobacco 21, can access free Quit Tobacco resources. Minnesota's Quit Partner program even offers a new youth program called My Life, My Quit. Sometimes I hear concerns from colleagues about border issues. This just makes it, the nationwide law makes it clear that Tobacco 21 is the law of the land regardless of what side of the border you live on. Our kids are relying on us to help them live healthy lives free from addiction, and our retailers and communities are relying on us to provide clear guidance on federal law to help them succeed in keeping us healthy and safe. Please join me in voting yes on this very common sense bill.
Any further discussion on House File 331? The author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Tobacco 21 is not about punishing our kids. It's about preventing addiction. This bill, I've been working with so many youth, and as you know, Lori Halverson had mentioned, 11% of 8th graders, according to the 2019 student survey, reported using vapes. 16% of 9th graders, 26% of 11th graders. We have an epidemic on our hands. Kids said, over 76 of the kids that took the student survey reported they did not know how addictive they didn't know how addictive it was, and they found themselves in a very bad place. We are here as lawmakers to protect our youth. As a mom, I want to stand up and make sure that we are protecting our youth. I urge a yes vote today.
The clerk will take the roll on House File 331.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, no.
Albright, no. Anderson.
Anderson, no.
Anderson, no. Backer.
Backer, yes.
Backer, aye. Bonner. Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Becker, Finn. Becker, Finn. Bennett.
Bennett, no.
Bennett, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow.
Oh, no.
Bow, no. Brand.
Brand, yes.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, no.
Daniels, no. Doubt. Doubt, no. Davids.
No.
Davids, no. Davney.
Dabney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean. Dean, aye. Damath. Damath, aye. Detmer.
Detmer, aye.
Detmer, aye. Drzkowski.
Guskowski, no.
Drzkowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Edelson. Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, no.
Erickson, no. Fabian.
Fabian, no.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, yes.
Franzen, aye. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo votes no.
Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, no.
Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, nay.
Grossel, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Gunther.
Gunther, no.
Gunther, no. Haley.
Haley, aye.
Haley, aye. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, aye.
Hamilton, aye. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman. Heinzman, no. Her.
Her, aye.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, no.
Hertos, no. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson.
Johnson, no.
Johnson, no. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens, excused. Keel.
Aye.
Keel.
Jurgens, aye.
Jurgens, aye. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Cleavorn.
Seaborn, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Considine. Or Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, no.
Kosnick, no. Krishaw.
Krisha, no.
Krishaw, no. Kunish Podine. Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, aye.
Lehman, aye. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesh.
Lesh, aye.
Lesh, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lilly.
Lily, aye.
Lilly, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Aye. Long, aye. Lucero. Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Lucero. Lewick, aye.
Lewick, aye. Mahoney.
No.
Mahoney.
Mahoney, no.
Mahoney.
Mahoney, no.
Mahoney, no. Man, excuse. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Markwart.
Markwart, aye.
Markwart, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Mecklin, nay.
Mecklin, no. Miller.
Miller, aye.
Miller, aye. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Morrison. Morrison, aye. Munson.
Munson, no.
Munson, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash, excused. Nelson, M.
Nelson M, aye.
Nelson, M, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson N, no.
Nelson, N, no. New. New, no. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, no.
Nornis, no. Novotny.
Novotny, no.
Novotny, no. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, no. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Palowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Palowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, aye.
Petersburg, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam. Quam. Richardson. Richardson, aye. Robbins. Robbins, aye. Runbeck. Runbeck, aye. Sandell.
Aye.
Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
Sauk, aye.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott. Scott, no. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, no.
Swazinski, no. Tabke.
Tadke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, no.
Tice, no. Torkelson.
Torkelson, no.
Torkelson, no. Erdahl.
Erdahl, aye.
Erdahl, aye. Vang.
Bang, aye.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, no.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, no.
West, no. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie.
Xiong Jay, aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Young T, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman, aye. Runbeck changes from aye to nay. Not that? Becker
I'd like
Finn.
to make sure my vote was done correctly.
Considine is aye. Considine, aye. Becker Finn.
Thank you.
Okay. Quam. Quam.
There being 89 ayes and 41 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.